It's my pleasure to welcome you all. Welcome to this seminar, which is a Bridge Fellowship seminar for the Japan Society for Promotion of Science Alumni Club Denmark for this year. So my name is Leila Luleggio. I'm a professor at the Department of Chemistry at the Faculty of Science. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because I'm actually the chair of the JSPS Alumni Club Denmark. The Bridge Fellowship program, for those of you that do not know, is a program for regular members of JSPS ACD. So these are people who are ones that are JSPS alumni, that enables them to return back to Japan some years after they've had a regular fellowship. We had a little pandemic, maybe a big pandemic, and there was no travel in 2020 and 2021, and we were very bored at home. And that's when we started with this first webinar to promote the Bridge Fellowship. And the first webinar you see here, that was the flyer that was made at the time. And since then, up to very recently, there has actually been no new fellow, because I believe you, Gunhild, received the Bridge Fellowship in 2020, yes. But it was first in 2022 that you could actually travel. And so let me introduce Associate Professor Gunhild Borggreen, who will be on in just a minute, from the Department of Arts and Cultural Studies at the University of Copenhagen. She's also been an active member of the JSPS ACD board for many years, although she is now not anymore. And she received the Bridge Fellowship in 2020 to visit Professor Mori Yoshitaka, but could not really travel until, yes, I guess about this time, autumn last year, right, Gunhild? I'm sure you will say a little bit more about this. So it is now a pleasure that we will be hearing all about this visit. And after your talk, guest professor talk, I'll also be saying a little bit more about JSPS funding and the Bridge Fellowship. So without stealing more time from your presentation, Professor Borggreen, please.
Thank you. So thank you so much for inviting me to give a small talk about my trip last year in the Bridge Fellowship. It's a big honor, and I always look forward to telling about my trips to Japan. So I hope I can keep it within the 20 minutes. And also thank you so much to Professor Mori that you have the time to participate here as well, and we can relive our collaboration from last year. Yes, I've already been introduced so nicely by Leila, so I don't think I need to say any more about this. Actually, I want to say a little bit about the background for the JSPS Bridge Fellowship, because I actually also received a JSPS activity seminar support back in 2017. And for that event, I was able to make this 2-day seminar with the title Collaboration and Community Building in Contemporary Art in Japan and Denmark. And as you can see on the photo, there was a lot of people attending this 2-day seminar with curators, artists, and scholars from around Denmark, and also some from Japan that came to join in our discussions about how visual art and contemporary art can contribute to small local communities, to keep them alive, to revive places that are maybe being depopulated and so on. And this seminar actually also started some activities in terms of trying to apply for some research funding that could continue this on a larger scale, which unfortunately we didn't get, but it was really a great seminar, and also it continued with more activities, such as another network, international network supported by the Danish Agency for Science and Higher Education in 2018 and 19. And during these 2 years, this network was also a collaboration between Professor Mori at the Tokyo University of the Arts, as well as Associate Professor Anemone Platz at the University of Aarhus. So the three of us organized 4 workshops during the 2 years. 2 of them took place in Japan, the 2 top images on this slide, and 2 of them took place in Denmark, the 2 lower slides. And as you can see, apart from sitting inside and discussing different things about art, we also made a lot of field trips where we met artists in local communities and could see how artists do a lot of things to try to get local people, local residents involved in art projects, even though they're not educated artists themselves, but using art as a way of strengthening the community and having meaningful projects to do together as local residents. So my trip to Japan last year as the BRIDGE Fellowship from September 17th to October 16th was a little bit a continuation of the same projects, because I wanted to look into how a lot of these art festivals that take place in Japan are trying to use the art projects as a means to get people in the local communities to work together, and that these projects also have some socially engaging aspects to make people meet each other and collaborate and bring new ideas and visions to the table through the collaboration with art and artists and other people involved in art projects. For other previous days in Japan, I've been visiting some of these art festivals, but now that I came back in 2022, there were some art festivals taking place that I was lucky to be able to visit and to see how they use art in these local community relationships. So the 3 local art festivals that I visited while I was there was the Reborn Art Festival in Ishinomaki in Miyagi Prefecture, the Aichi Triennale in Nagoya City, and the Tokyo Biennale in Tokyo. And this later one is something that Professor Mori has been part of establishing and maintaining. So the last part, I think I will just leave to Professor Mori to tell more about the details. But the first festival was the Reborn Art Festival in Ishinomaki in Miyagi Prefecture. And I was so lucky that Anemone Platz was also visiting Japan at this time. So we went to this festival together for 4 days and could have a chance to walk around in Ishinomaki City and see the different artworks. They were either placed in public space or they were installed in buildings, some of them public, some of them private buildings. So we had a good chance to get to see a lot of different artworks that all addressed the special issues they have in Ishinomaki. So Ishinomaki City was one of those cities that were very, very hurt and damaged and traumatized by the tsunami in 2011. Large part of the southern tip of the city was simply washed into the sea, and thousands of people died in that terrible event. And the Reborn Art Festival has been going on a couple of times. It's every 3rd year, but its main purpose is simply to sort of, as the word, the title, reborn, to celebrate the rebirth of a city after the catastrophe. And this year, the title of the festival was Altruism and Fluidity, and they had different artists coming in that worked with this theme. A lot of the focus was, as I already said a couple of times, the collaboration between local residents and artists as a means to reassemble the local communities that were destroyed by the tsunami in 2011. So let me just show you a couple of examples of some artworks. One of them was the artist group Me, who constructed a kind of mobile living room. And they, through this project, kind of questioned both the aspect of altruism, but also pointed out at this aspect of dark tourism, like people going to sites of catastrophe because of the curiosity or fascination with disaster and death and so on. So even now, so many years after the 2011 disaster, these issues are still pertinent, I think, for Ishinomaki and other areas in the Tohoku region. But this truck, as it was, had been refurbished. So in the back was a kind of a box which had glass windows, and you could sit inside as if you were sitting in a more sort of traditional Japanese living room with a genkan and tatami mats and curtains and so on. And you were sitting on these easy chairs. You did wear a seatbelt actually, which of course was for the safety of the passengers. But then this truck would take you around in the local area, especially in the disaster areas, so you could get a sense of, first of all, how large a geographical area was actually hit by the tsunami at that time. And of course also reflecting on these elements of altruism and dark tourism. By sitting inside, of course, I and other passengers could look out and see kind of as a tourist being taken around in this area. But because of these large windows, those people outside in the streets would also be able to look at us inside. So there was this kind of exchange of gaze, or the way we look at each other through this kind of visual staging of people looking in and people looking out. And here are some of the areas that this living room truck would take us around. Some of the parts that had been destroyed by the tsunami, but now has been made into a memorial park with a memorial museum or a disaster museum, and things kind of kept uninhabited. Of course, you can also imagine that there could be a new tsunami in the future, so they're very careful about not rebuilding these areas. And here we see in the background of that landscape, we can see the ruins of this Kadonowaki Elementary School in Ishinomaki, a school where relatively many students actually saved their lives, because as you can see in the background, the territory is kind of raising up. There's a very steep hill just behind the school, and a lot of children actually escaped through the back windows of the school and could climb up to higher grounds when the water came. But they keep these kind of buildings. They restore them a little bit so they don't fall more apart, but then they keep them as memorial sites and have like museums and so on. And this is part of what some artists during the festival were also relating to. For example, the artist Mariko Asabuki and Kanji Yumisashi had a huge installation where they asked a lot of people from the city to give their testimony or talk about their memories from the day of the disaster, which then the artist would transfer into visual images, either on paper like these ones or textile works that were also filled up in this installation. And here we can see to the left some of the images from that school that I just showed the image, because there were burning debris coming in the water flowing just outside the windows. So this is a way to, in a way, relive the memories and overcoming some of the traumas that are still in the society also so many years after the event. And a final example from Ishinomaki is this, there were a lot of international artists that were invited to join in, and they came to the city and stayed for a while they were doing their artworks. They would collaborate with the other artists and with the local residents. So this is some Brazilian graffiti artist, Os Guimios, who were making these huge, very colorful mural paintings, and we can see how they evoke the azalea flower, which is the official flower of Ishinomaki, but also the fact that this huge figure, very colorful, is kind of the illusion of he's emerging out of the wall. He's kind of coming into being out of these ruins from the disaster, symbolizing a kind of rebirth and a new vision for art and art collaboration to carry on in this city in the future as well. So the Reborn Festival in Ishinomaki is to keep the memories of the disaster alive in order not to forget the victims, but also they try to discuss how we can live with nature and adapt to the various manifestations of the natural environments also in the future. So let me say a few words about the IT Triennale in Nagoya. This is a very large-scale international art festival at 3 different sites in the city, or at least it was last year. And the theme for this year's Triennale was Still Alive, and it is a direct reference to some artworks by the Japanese artist Kawada On that was on display at the museum. And they also have, for that festival, focus on the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of works actually dealt with this specific crisis, but there were also other urgent themes such as refugees, global disaster, and climate change as themes for the many artworks. Some of it took place here at the Aichi Prefectural Museum of Art, and this is where one of the telegrams of On Kawada's conceptual art from 1970 up to 2000. He sent thousands of telegrams to his friends and other colleagues around the world where he just stated, "I am still alive." And this kind of bringing on life in a way and cementing I am still alive despite of all that's going on. Another artwork was in the Arimatsu area of Nagoya, which is used to be a textile production area. And in here was a young artist, Japanese artist, Aki Inomata, who kind of collaborated, if you can say so, with these small bagworms, which are small worms that make small houses or shelters on their back with leaves or small branches or sticks or small stones. But in this case, the artist had given the bagworm some tiny pieces of textile so that the worm would make these small shelters out of those textile pieces. And they looked very beautiful, and this kind of collaboration between human and animal. Of course, that points towards also these ideas of the post-human Anthropocene world, where we also have to not be so dominated, the human being, but also try to collaborate more with other species and with the nature in general. And another artwork was very focused on local context. Here is world famous Japanese artist Shiuta Chiharu, who made this very site-specific installation in one of the old textile factories in the Ichinomiya district of Nagoya, where she uses this signature element of her artworks with this thread that makes this web all over the space, here attaching the web to one of the old machinery from the textile factory, again evoking the memories of all the lives and all the labor people had put in, those who worked at these factories when Nagoya was a textile industry. And then the final and third event that I joined in while I was in Japan last year was the Tokyo Biennale. And some of the events that I was part of took place around this Kanneji Temple in Ueno in the north part of central Tokyo. And we can see here the Biennale people had set up this mobile booth and had like an open office where people could come and hear more about the local art projects that took place around in this area, which I'm sure Professor Mori will tell us more about in a minute. And I was invited to join a symposium with the title of Relations, which took place inside this very, very beautiful part of the temple area. And here is a view from the inside where the lecture, the symposium took place, and you could look out into the beautiful garden outside. So that was a small report on some of the events that I participated and joined in while I was in Japan last year. And yeah, I wonder if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we are a small group, so there should be plenty of room for questions or comments.
It just looks and sounds super interesting and inspiring. Makes me want to go and see some of these festivals as well and learn from them. So thank you.
Yeah, of course, needless to say that it's fantastic with the BRIDGE program, the generous support that made it possible to stay for a whole month and also travel around in Japan to see these places. Needless to say, I'm very, very grateful for the JSPS and the Alumni Club Denmark for this support.
And I think that it is also important to remember that this can be the beginning of the continuation and the establishment of long-term collaborations between Japan and Denmark, and that's also what makes it so valuable. And it sounds like your collaboration, Professor Mori and Gunhild, is definitely a long-term collaboration that is continuing. So that is great. So maybe if there is no specific question, I would leave the floor to Professor Mori so we can hear the second half of this really exciting presentation.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Here we go. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the workshop, and I'm very happy to see some of all friends. And then, I start to think, oh, I should go back Denmark sometimes to see. So my report is basically kind of how we feel about JSPS this project, and also what we experience with Gunhild in Japan. But before that, I think I should introduce myself properly. This is a sort of a list of my books, but unfortunately, most of the books are written in Japanese. To be honest, I'm not very active in terms of writing English article, but if you are interested in, some English article available in this list. But my main concern is something like popular music, popular culture, contemporary art, or also social movement in relation to art expression. I also interested in graffiti art or sort of art activism. This area are sort of my concern. I would say I'm more like a sociologist. I'm working at Graduate School of Global Arts, GA, Tokyo University of Arts. Tokyo University of Arts is the oldest art school, which means established but at the same time conservative in a way. It is located in Ueno area, where the Tokyo Biennale took place. There, mainly I'm teaching sociology, cultural studies, media studies, and I would say sociology of contemporary art. The school is quite interesting because the Graduate School of Global Arts started almost 8 years ago. This is small school, but try to make a sort of organize anything global, so some global arts. So it's so that we have basically 10 MA students every year and 5 PhD students too. More than half of the students are overseas, and we are giving a talk or a lecture and organize a seminar, partly in English and partly in Japanese. But because there are students from a different area. English is the only way of communication, but it doesn't mean English is a perfect means of communication, because some students are from China, from Korea, or even from kind of European countries. It means English is not first language to them. Sometimes they speak Japanese better than English, or maybe they have a more sort of language problem. So the whole discussion is more like a very broken English type, discussion. But anyway, it's really sort of a challenging, sort of new way of communication. There are 3 areas in a graduate school. The one is curating, how to curate art exhibition. The second is art management. It's more like a business. our sort of policy making issue. And the third area is a research area. And I belong to the third one and teach sociology and cultural studies there. Recently, I'm looking at contemporary art, but it's sort of, how can I put, new type of contemporary art, particularly in relation to popular culture and digital media. I don't know how many people here are familiar with the contemporary art, but these days we are facing the social turn of contemporary art, which means that art is not really sort of fixed area. Like, you know, normally when we talk about art, that means kind of artworks located in museums. But these days, art have a new relationship with the society or kind of local community or educational institution or blah blah blah. So art is becoming everywhere, and then artists start to collaborate with non-artist people, like of course they are working with a sort of business people or working with scientists, or even they are working with kids or elderly people. So I think this is a new phenomenon. The kinds of the role of the arts in society is radically changing over the last 20 years. So some people say that, oh, this is a sort of relational aesthetic or emergence of socially engaged art. I think, of course, you can discuss kind of the situation in Japanese art under this sort of Western category. But I have to say, Japanese art exhibition has its own unique character these days, particularly if you look at Biennale Art Festival in rural area or in the city, you can find very characteristic feature of Japanese art situation, which might be different from Euro-American type art exhibition. So this is something we are looking at. Tokyo Biennale could be one of the example. It was well, Tokyo Biennale sounds very big project because the city, Tokyo, is really a big metropolitan. But in fact, this is very small bottom-up type kind of community-based project. It was supposed to take place 2020 when the Tokyo Olympic was held. But in fact, because of the pandemic, Tokyo Olympic was postponed, and then Tokyo Biennale too. I mean, it has to change. But the thing is, they have already invited some artists to start the project even before 2020. They have to sort of make the project somehow continuous project from 2020 to 2021. So it's getting a sort of a 2 years project. As the theme of the Tokyo Biennale 2020-2021 was social dive, where the sort of Tokyo Biennale invite artists to stay the sort of some accommodation in Tokyo to make artworks or have a workshop or project with the local residents. And also, they carefully chose a sort of the northern part of Tokyo, which was somehow old downtown. So it's got some very interesting atmosphere, which followed even before the Second World War. I mean, so it's got a very residential. It's not like a very metropolitan Tokyo city. It's a very old downtown. Then, Tokyo Biennale organized a series of the workshop there. And also, this is a Tokyo Biennale 2023, which is now taking place. So, but as I said, this Biennale is not really Biennale. It's a sort of continuous happening almost every year. So the event Tokyo Biennale 2023 started actually in 2022 when the Gunhild came. So maybe it's a bit confusing if you say this is a biennial, because normally biennial has a very kind of limited time schedule. But in fact, Tokyo Biennale, we are saying Tokyo Biennale 2022 or 2023, but in fact, it's kind of continuous project because it's more like, a community-based art, art project, and then artists stay in the city and work with the local people. And even after, the Tokyo Biennale 2023 ended 2 weeks ago, but some projects still go. And my own project, relation, is also, like that. It started 2020, but it's actually continuously, taking place. This is a map of Tokyo Biennale. If you understand the Japanese, Chinese character, probably you understand where it is. But the main area is around Akihabara station, which was a town for otaku culture and also electricity. Also, this was a bit, how can I put, but bit chaotic town, where the kind of young people and old people can meet together. So Tokyo Biennale organized a very small project in many places. So the idea is, the participant have to walk around the city and have to spend more than 2 days to see all of the works. Even I haven't seen all of the works because there are too many artworks, which are very fragmented, small, but at the same time, as I said, it's not kind of one-off exhibition. Sometimes they spend almost 2 months to construct the project. So we can see just the process of the project, but it's very difficult to see the whole project if you are not residents. So if you live there, you can see how the project is going on. So the all projects are based on the workshop, sort of art project, or sort of dialogic kind of dialogue between the artist and the local people. So this is the idea of the Tokyo Biennale. So which is they don't have any particular museum or sort of big gallery where the all artworks are together. There are some small galleries, but they are actually the all location are really fragmented in the city. This is my project. I was asked to organize a sort of web project to discuss what's happening around Tokyo Biennale. The project title is Relations. So my idea is to make a sort of connection between Tokyo Biennale and other Biennale, the people who live outside of Tokyo. And I invited some of my friends and some of the collaborators, and Gunhild is one of the central figure of the project. I invited Gunhild as a sort of one of the editorial board member, and had an interview, had video interview, and put that kind of video on this website. Also, I organized a series of workshops together. I hoped to invite Gunhild during 2020 years, but because of the pandemic, we couldn't invite Gunhild and other people in person. So instead, we organized a series of the video, online workshop or online text. This is a statement. The statement itself is longer, so if you're interested, please have a look at the website. So Relations, a project of Christmas media practice, is being launched as a part of Tokyo Biennale. The project aims to consider the possibility art, Christmas, and media practice in the age of digitalization and globalization, particularly in the space of web and social media, and to propose new practice for Christmas media. Creation is a project for Christmas media practice that tries to create new language for the art and media in response to the new art forms in the 21st century. It attempts to explore the relationship between art and other fields, including those of sociology, economics, politics, science, and technology. While this project is part of Tokyo Biennale, it critically examines the Biennale and aims to propose new way of art. Yeah, these days, it's very difficult to make art criticism because, maybe in early 20th century, it's easier because art has a particular format, like painting, sculpture, print, or video. Anyway, you can imagine what it is art. That is located in museums. Maybe we could see the object as artworks. But these days, as I said, the art is becoming more like a project or workshop or kind of institutional, attempt to even education. It's really difficult to kind of define what art is. And then the question is, how we can make a criticism, or how we can evaluate these new type of artwork. So the relations is a project to sort of establish the kind of system of evaluation, but it's not really sort of criticism in an old way. It has to be more sort of non-textual, or maybe more transnational, or maybe it should be sort of non-elitist. That means the evaluation should be made by sort of non-professional in art world. So we have to invite a more different kind of people from outside of the art world. That is some idea. Also, we have to invite a kind of elderly people, or even children, or even kind of foreign people who don't understand English or even Japanese to participate. So the relations has actually multilingual essays, including Japanese, Chinese, Korean, even Russian, and then we put all the language without translation. Maybe, so there are some layers of readers, because obviously, you cannot read the whole text here, relations, because as I said, there are many languages without translation, but probably you could see, what's going on. But this is a sort of reality of the world, particularly the city like Tokyo. There are many different people who cannot share the one particular language among each other. So the kind of miscommunication should be sort of more kind of visible in this art discussion. So that is a kind of project of the relations. I hope it works, but at the same time, it looks bit chaotic in this one. So I think I should talk about symposium a little bit. When Gunhild came to Japan by JSPS BRIDGE project, luckily enough, we had the sort of the first week of Tokyo Biennale. So we organized a symposium entitled Where International Art Festival is the City Moving Towards. And we invite Gunhild and other curators, also the directors of Tokyo Biennale, had a discussion at Copenhagen. We also invited Clélia Zelnik from Beaux-Arts to Paris. She's a specialist on Japanese contemporary art. And Min Nishihara is a director of Tokyo Biennale. Actually, even in this symposium, we used 3 languages, Japanese, French, and English, and we had kind of 4 translators. The thing is, the French, the Clélia gave a talk in French, and then it was translated into English, and then translated into Japanese. So it took very long to have a discussion. But I thought that we needed, because this kind of discussion is a sort of reality we are facing. Of course, we might be able to introduce simultaneous interpretation at the time, but we didn't, because we want to hear the voices, how they are speaking. We want to see sort of faces, or sort of we want to share sometimes to a translation. So that is a sort of the structure. But at the same time, it was a really kind of great moment, because it was just pandemic. The time the pandemic was ending. So before that, we couldn't see each other for almost 2 years at all. So I think, we might be able to have a Zoom conference, but we wanted to have a sort of conference in person to share some time. So that is the idea of this project. The issue to discuss we propose is a sort of how international art exhibition is changing, because obviously COVID-19 prevented us to travel abroad, so it was very almost impossible to organize an art exhibition. And also, this is a time to reconsider the art tourism, because even we had an art exhibition, we couldn't get any guests from outside. The Japan was successful in that sense in late 2010, and the Setouchi Triennale or Ichigotsumari Triennale, this art festival was an example of the big success. But in fact, because of pandemic, we have to somehow give up getting overseas tourists, and then we need to look at more local people as a sort of audience. The answer could be sort of how we can organize exhibition to local people, not to international tourists. That's the big question during the COVID-19. In that sense, art exhibition in Japan, art project in Japan was sometimes associated with a revitalization project of rural area, and how, we can revitalize the kind of the local area which facing kind of depopulation problem or elderly problem, that kind of things, by using art. But as I said, art tourism is one of the possible answer. But if we cannot have this one, how we can use art is becoming a more kind of serious question again. So we actually picked up some biennale or artworks and to discuss how we can overcome this crisis. Actually, you can see the discussion on the YouTube. So I will send the YouTube kind of address later. So if you are interested, please have a look. The location is fantastic. Actually, this is a kind of old Kan age, originally built in the Edo period, but rebuilt after the Second World War. It's got a very beautiful Japanese garden. So this is sort of small conclusion. So what did JSPS BRIDGE program bring to us? One thing is, actually, Gunhild actually gave us a sort of a perspective of comparative studies. We feel, okay, we understand the sort of Japanese art festival, what the character is, but from comparative studies, obviously Gunhild knows about the European situation or the Danish situation, and then she didn't mention, the Danish art scene. We can feel, how she is comparing Japanese, so, a unique situation to a Danish situation. And then we actually rediscover, what's the characteristic feature of Japanese art. So that leads to a deep understanding of the unique character of art or art festival or the revitalization project in a rural area in Japan. I think this is really important to Japanese scholar. And also even the idea of the contemporary art itself, not very, but probably slightly different from Danish perspective. And somehow I'm quite interested in hearing what Gunhild talking about Japanese art. And then maybe we should discuss that kind of small difference of the concept of art itself between Japan and Denmark or even Europe in general. And also but one of the greatest thing was that was very good educational effect to postgraduate students. When we had a symposium kind of workshop, always kind of students are very happy to participate, even though, they, I mean, there are different kinds of students from art world, but also media studies or cultural studies. But that was really a great kind of exchange opportunity to it. And also, the discussion we had in the symposium was really good to Tokyo Biennale 2002, 2001, and then 2023. So in between, because we had the international symposium, we were able to sort of discuss a sort of destination where the Tokyo Biennale should go. So that was very nice to us. So I hope, maybe, of course, the JSPS BRIDGE have a kind of different area, but in terms of art field, this was really a kind of important kind of exchange between Denmark and Japan, and I hope we can continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think that you bring home the importance of these exchanges, and that goes for all sorts of topics and disciplines, is through comparing the differences between us that we learn about ourselves and about others, and how we collaborate. And that's just as true for arts as it is for natural scientists. One may think that when we are hardcore chemists, it's the same everywhere, but it is not. And the differences are enriching. So I think it was very interesting to see your perspective of how you can learn about yourself by learning about each other. Are there any questions? Yes, Gunhild, there's a question.
No, it's more a comment. And thank you so much, Yoshi, for doing this summary in the end of what the broader understanding and meaning of these kind of visits. I, of course, as one single individual, come into the Japanese context for a month, and yeah, I look for my things, but I'm really happy that you are able to broaden out the value of this kind of exchange, so it gives meaning on a much broader level. And I look forward to more collaboration in the future.
Yeah. No. Thank you very much for saying that. Particularly during COVID-19 period, we realized how important to see in person each other. That was a big point. So of course we can read your text, your kind of writings, or maybe we can have a discussion through Zoom. But to see in person is really important to develop some ideas. So that was very new discovery during the COVID-19.
Yeah, and I think, is it Jakob?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Mori. It was really interesting, and also for also Gunhild's presentation. I'm curious about this idea of art tourism. I know that, I think at some point I saw the numbers of visitors at Setsuichi Triennale, and it was quite amazing. and of course, organizing art events in Denmark, you're really kind of envious about, how do you attract that number of visitors? And it seems that maybe there, of course, there are differences in geography and stuff like that, but how did any of you study how that kind of concept or how that thing works? Does it travel can we compare the way that the art tourism works in Japan to what happens in Europe, or is it a completely kind of different cultural setting?
Can I start? But I just want to say, like, the Setsuichi Triennale is just very special. I know other festivals also have a large number of tourists, but I think it's a combination of Japanese people in general are very kind of cultural minded. They like to go to museums and see art stuff and so on. And then this combination with coming out in the countryside and actually also see some landscapes outside the city. And then I guess because of this mixture of a commercial interest from galleries and so on, of course also the huge sponsorship by Fukutake and Benesse company to actually also in a way support the local communities through these art projects, but also support them through the more art tourism industry that brings a lot of people from the big cities into the small villages, and a lot of local people can try to make a living on this cultural thing. I don't know if it's a good positive thing or not. You also get a lot of overload of tourists, maybe too many people in some very vulnerable places like the small islands in the Setouchi area might not be able to actually accommodate these almost hordes of art tourists that come only in very specific times of the year. So I think it is a huge industry, but it's also pros and cons, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think of course we can compare the Japanese art tourism to, for instance, art tourism in Europe. But I think that one of the situation is very peculiar in Japan because originally the Ministry of Culture in Japan has very small budget. So kind of as Gunhild said, I mean, Japanese people love art, but in terms of budget, it's relatively smaller than European countries. And then, but the government starts to think, okay, art could be new business. That's your tourism. And then start to invest, and they spend sort of not from the Ministry of Art, Ministry of Culture, but from, Ministry of Economy or Science or that kind of money. Start to go to that kind of art tourist projects then. So I think that is one of the reasons why Japanese art projects is getting bigger and bigger recently. I think this sort of political situation or understanding of art as a sort of means of getting more people is probably very Japanese, policy.
Thank you. If I may have a question myself, I mean, it's a major challenge that one faces in many places, not just in Japan, but also, for example, I'm Italian in Venice. Can't there be a role where global tourism gets redirected to local communities? Maybe local tourisms of a different type where the tourists participate also. If you want more in the community rather than just being tourists. I think it's a challenge, but there's also a lot of interest. And, I know that, for example, Kyoto is facing enormous challenges by its own popularity. Venice is the same. It's almost been shut down because of that. But yet the global tourism, a different type of tourism, could be a great strength in the rural communities in Japan. And when I think of my own home country, also in Italy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, of course, the Venice or Kyoto or these kind of big city might have a big problem about they have too many tourism, and they have to kind of think about how to stop in a way. But at the same time, rural area have a kind of different perspective these days because, tourists are not only tourists. Sometimes they stayed one week or even 1 month or stay 3 months, or maybe they moved in eventually if they like it. So I think that kind of different type of tourism starting, particularly among Asian people. I mean, maybe at the beginning, most of the Asian tourists just came to a big city like Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, but now they start to go to rural area for skiing or, skating or swimming or whatever. And then they realize 1 day is not enough. Maybe they have to stay more than 1 week, 2 weeks, or maybe even 1 month. I think that kind of new type of vacation program might help more sort of local business as well. So I think that in terms of sort of form of tourism gradually changing, and I hope it's going to have a new possibility even to art project.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's some interesting things have happened also during and after the pandemic. So maybe some good will come out of it too.
Yeah, pandemic give a lot many ideas.
Yes, so I was going to thank you, and Gunhild, once again, thank you very, very much, and thank you everybody for the lively discussion. And I now, if anybody is interested in hearing a little bit about the JSPS funding programs, especially for Scandinavia, JSPS Stockholm could not be here, but I have a video. Then I want to thank you for participating and also in the nice discussion. Thank you so much for making it interesting. This was an introduction that was made by Kiko from the Stockholm office for actually another event, but it goes through the major funding possibilities. So I'll just play it and say things when there's something important to say. Yes, so JSPS is, as I'm sure you know, one of the largest funding agency in Japan, which is governmental but also independent and covers all academic fields. JSPS Stockholm office is one of the international offices. The Stockholm office is active in the Nordic and Baltic countries, and among other things, like hosting events and running some of the fellowships programs, it also helps out alumni networks like the Alumni Club Denmark, for example. So there's mainly two categories of fellowships, and some of the for pre and postdoctorals, which can be either standard or short term, and then there's invitational fellowships like the professor or mid-career, and these are of course the actual general JSPS fellowships that everybody can apply for. And so we have these postdoctoral fellowships. Are mostly the standard one, which are only for postdoctoral researchers, although you can apply also as a doctoral student as long as the fellowship is actually to be used after receiving a PhD. The short-term fellowships, on the other hand, they are available to everybody. What I mean by everybody is, of course, they are also available to PhD students. They're not available to everybody. So if you're a professor, you can't, of course, apply for a postdoctoral fellowship. That goes without saying, I hope. And then we have invitational fellowships, which are for professor and mid-career researchers. So for these fellowships, you either need to be professor, associate professor, or assistant professor, or at least have received a PhD degree at least 6 years before. So these are for senior people, and we have long-term and short-term fellowships. So you need a host for these institutions, and if you don't know, you can find a researcher that you might want to be in contact. That's a new service. Yeah, so you have a link here to the JSPS Tokyo site. And we have also, there are also some bilateral programs that you can find some more information on. But what I want to say more about is particularly the bridge fellowship that you can get if you are a member of an alumni club. So this is an alumni network like the Alumni Club Denmark that you probably are a member of, and you can be either a regular or an associate member. And if you are a regular member, that means that you have had and have held a JSPS fellowship before. So when you return, you are allowed to join the club. And that, among other things, it opens the possibility to apply for the Bridge Fellowship. So this is open only to regular members of the JSPS Alumni Club Denmark. And it includes a round-trip air ticket, overseas travel insurance, and is from 14 to 30 days, and a pretty reasonable maintenance allowance, and even a research support allowance. So now, since I assume that most of you who are still on are members already, I hope that at least this has given you an overview. Thank you for coming. And so I'll say goodbye